right, let's get started. Very, very quickly, not that anyone is going to be in the area, but if you are in the vicinity of New York, Connecticut, we have a meetup on Sunday at the Greenwich Polo Club. Very bougie of us, but we are going to have a very good time. So if you want to join us for the Greenwich Polo match on Sunday, we got a great group of people coming out to enjoy polo, which I'm assuming is a fun thing to watch, but I have no idea because I've never done it. So
just message me for details if anybody is still interested.
All right. Well, we are excited to have Todd and Gina with us today. Incredible members. For anyone who's has not been on a power hour, so you all have the opportunity to do power hours, because I think, a lot of the magic in this community is that everyone has these things that they are subject matter experts in or they're wildly passionate about that they can share with the group. So Todd and Gina are board certified hypnotists. They've been doing it for a very long time. Their certification puts them in kind of a very elite status. There is not many folks who have that designation, and they just do tremendous work. I mean, I think it's got to be so fulfilling when your work literally changes people's lives. Whether it's dealing with past trauma or whether it's, helping somebody to quit smoking or whatever the case may be. I mean, really what they do is remarkable. So anyway, I think we have an intro video, right? Let's do our little intro video and then we're going to get rolling.
Intro video.
Okay. That's awesome.
Wow, I'm glad. Thank you, Scott. I'm glad that's it. For a second there, Gina, I thought when I heard that music, he was gonna. You had shared that video of me dancing around in my underwear and everything to hip hop and stuff. So
oh my God, I know.
Good.
Yeah, Todd gets wild.
Keep that under wraps. I have to promote a professional veneer. Look like I'm professional. I can't be dancing
Don't
around.
let this conservative nature fool you. Darlene, good seeing you. All right, guys, what do you want to share with us today? I am very excited because I really don't know exactly what you're going to say. Typically, I got a pretty good idea, so this is going to be fun.
Well, the first thing we're going to do is actually ask you guys a question.
Yeah. So before we do, I just want to say that here's our intention is to have the time be about half where we're discussing some things with a little bit of interaction. And then after that, we want to open it up for at least 20 minutes of Q&A because there may be questions and we'll be happy to answer them. That will also enrich, what we're able to share. So the question is, by a show of hands, have you ever experienced this kind of thought, or have you ever said this to yourself? Well, one part of me wants to do this, but the other part of me wants to do that.
Or I know I should be doing this, but I just keep doing that.
Yeah. So if you're
I wish
human,
I wouldn't.
yeah, good. So if you're human, This is how we can tell who's a cyborg or an android and who's an actual human. Like if you're a human, you've absolutely experienced this, probably still do experience it. There's a good reason why this happens. It's perfectly normal and natural. And this sort of internal dialogue, debate, or conflict is actually at the core of most unintentionally self-created problems, emotional problems, behavioral problems, whether it shows up in health, relationships, money, career, or anything else. We're going to give some insight into what is actually causing this and how this can be changed, how we can change this. So first, I'll just start off by saying that Gina and I believe that everyone has the right to be inspired by their goals and to be fulfilled by, their work, whatever that work is, personal work, professional work, whatever. Unfortunately, like I was saying, most people create emotional and behavioral challenges that get in their way and show up in a number of different ways. So like I was saying, they might say, well, I wish I could think, feel, or do that, but I keep thinking, feeling, or doing this, or I want to stop doing blank, but I can't help myself. So the thing is, it's unwise to ignore those problems for obvious reasons. But what you may not know, and what a lot of people don't realize, is that it's totally unnecessary to struggle against those problems.
Right. So real change doesn't have to take forever. It doesn't have to take years or even months. With the right approach, it can happen quickly, easily, and naturally, using the power of your own mind, which we find really, really cool. So if you think quick fixes, because our approach and how we do things seem like a quick fix, but if you think that those are shallow, that can be shallow, or it means shallow or temporary or not as effective, that's not true. The reality is that working directly with the subconscious, which is where the problem is the only way to make change both fast and very long lasting.
Yeah, and we don't, and as we'll explain, and there's a good reason for this, we don't waste time just playing with symptoms, which is really what most people present as their, quote, problem. It's really just a superficial symptom or effect of something deeper. So we don't waste time with that, even though we do resolve that, but that's not how we go about it. And we don't get lost in the narrative or the story that often keeps people locked in that problematic state. We get to the root of the problem, and we just happen to be board certified hypnotists. So hypnosis is simply one of a number of ways that we help shift the subconscious habitual thought pattern that causes the emotions and the behaviors that cause people to get in their own way. So what we're going to do is we're going to reveal, since I know that a lot of top members, and therefore a lot of the people who are here today, are usually in coaching fields, loosely defined. We're going to reveal what causes these symptoms, these personal challenges that cause your clients or coaching clients to get in their own way. So it's, professionals, it's executives, and it's everyone else. Like I said, as long as you're human, this is part of the human condition. And how these issues develop is important. In other words, where the seeds were planted, and then how that can be changed. So if you have the chat open, just so that we get a sense of who is here, can you just drop a couple words about what your professional work or title or role is? And if you're a coach, you might say health coach, executive coach, sales coach, relationship coach, life coach, motivational speaker, whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have keynote speaker, women-centered leadership coach, executive coach, burnout recovery coach, speaker, nonprofit founder, marketing, customer experience executive, Hey, Bree. Sales, promo, and apparel, digital strategist for web projects. Okay, so it's chief people officer, HR consulting. Okay, so it seems like all of these are either people who help other people with their professional work or do that kind of professional work themselves, or both. So that means that chances are you can relate to this. And so whether it's in your own life or in the life of the clients you work with, the professional clients you work with, can you type a word or two or a sentence, if you like, about what are some of the typical challenges that you or your clients face that's not strictly a business problem, like something in terms of a habit or a personal obstacle or something where you know on some level your mind is creating it? Like what are the what's a common challenge?
Doubt, self-worth, confidence,
Yeah.
negative self-talk, people-pleasing, fear of change. Yeah. Lack of self-worth. Overthinking, being, all this comes down to like one or two things, and there's lots of overlap.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like you shared our notes ahead of time. These are pretty much all of the all of the things that we were
No, I didn't.
anyway. So good. That means that we're in line with what you're all experiencing either personally or with your clients. We've experienced all of those things personally and with our clients in the past. So this, like I said, this is extremely common. There's no shame in the game. As long as you have a dynamic brain and life, these sort of things tend to show up. And there are certain reasons why they're really common and how that can change, even though it's normal along the line. As long as you're growing, as long as you're pushing yourself, there may be new things, new challenges that are revealed to you. But there's a certain time, which I'll get into shortly, or Gina will, about when these things actually, when these seeds first get planted. So just real quickly, so some of these things were like, okay, self-worth and confidence, doubt, negative self-talk, people pleasing, fear of change. So fear, feelings, however you loosely want to, define that, is an emotion, a physical feeling, but a kind of like a thought related feeling. So it could be grief, sadness, it could be anger and resentment. It could be fear, anxiety in all of its forms, panic, stress, overwhelm. It could be guilt, shame, regret. So any of those are feelings. Those feelings are caused by certain thoughts. And those feelings also trigger certain behaviors. So for example, so an easy, I didn't know how to do the screen sharing with this thing, but we have on our website a very oversimplified but easy to understand flow chart. On the left side, I don't know, do you see this as the left or the right?
Left.
Okay, good. See, it's reversed for me. So on the left, you have thought, then you have feeling with an arrow, and then you have behavior. So a very simple thing is if someone has a fear of flying, they have a thought, the plane's going to crash. Pretty simple. Something bad's going to happen. I'm not safe in this environment. And that thought, however irrational it might be, it can show up as an image, maybe a movie scene they saw, something they've imagined. Oh, wow.
Oh, there it is.
Thank you, Kathy. So yeah, so there's the thought that says I'm not safe or something bad's going to happen. Then there's an emotional response to that thought. And this is all subconscious. So the person's not sitting down saying, I'm going to scare the shit out of myself. They don't do that. They have a thought, which triggers a feeling. And then that feeling, if it's nervousness or panic, says, I need to get the hell out of here. So that might be get off the plane before they close the door, or it might be avoid getting on a plane altogether. So as much as this seems embarrassing and absurd, and it can be expensive and inconvenient and so on, and you can just map that across whatever the environment, fear, whatever the emotion is, those can be very limiting, and yet they persist despite willpower, despite logical thinking.
Despite knowing that flying is the safest way to travel for, safer than driving and, all the things that, logically, you still feel a certain way about it, which is irrational. And that's why subconscious work is the key to resolving it, because that's the irrational mind.
Exactly. And so we'll explain that a little bit more shortly. So whatever the case is, when there's a feeling, it's going to create some behavior as a way to adapt to that feeling. If it's a feeling of insecurity or it's a fear-based feeling, usually the behavior is going to be one that is going to keep you safe. It serves your short-term needs based on what you're thinking and feeling. It may not be good for you long-term. So we can think of it from a place of addictions, or drinking a little too much wine, or smoking, or too much social media, whatever it might be. By the way, is someone? I'm hearing an echo, and I think it's me. Is everyone muted except for you, Gina?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't hear an echo in you.
Okay. So if someone, and you can see even on the chart here, if the behavior is I'm eating, drinking, smoking, whatever, too much or in an unhealthy way, usually there's some emotion underlying that. Stress, anxiety, discomfort on some level. And again, this doesn't mean you have to be aware of it. And that discomfort prompts a behavior that's supposed to get you out of discomfort, at least temporarily. So when people drink a little too much, they're usually feeling somewhat uncomfortable before that. Even if they think they're celebrating, there's some discomfort about not having the alcohol influence. Then they drink, then they feel better. Now they might feel like shit the next day, but immediately that's helping them to feel good. So, Gina dropped the word subconscious. The subconscious is the part of us that's trying to protect us in the short term, trying to make us feel good when we're not feeling good. And it's going to choose any number of behaviors that accomplish that, even if in the long run, it's not good for us. What we're about to explain gets to the heart of this situation here, and what we're talking about, especially dealing with executives or professionals, not to mention everyone else. So we're just going to frame it in terms of what you might see in your own life or with your clients professionally. There are two main core beliefs that we've found are responsible for the vast majority of issues that our clients present, and maybe yours as well. And there's some overlap between them. One is I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough. And the other is I'm not safe. Okay. Has anyone ever thought or felt or known someone who's thought or felt those things? Yeah. And that's perfectly normal. And that happens, almost everyone feels that at some point. So I'm going to take the first one, and I'll let Gina take the second one. So the I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough or I'm not blank enough, whatever that is, old enough, young enough, smart enough, good looking enough, wealthy enough. Yeah. So I've kind of divided this into two groups. One, I'll call people who are hitting the gas. These can be like a type A overachieving mindset person, where they feel like they have something to prove. There's a part of them that feels like unless they, earn a certain amount, close a certain number of deals, reduce the handicap on the golf course a certain amount, whatever it might be, then they don't feel good enough. They may not be aware of this consciously, but they have something to prove to themselves or others. And so they push themselves really hard. It's really driven by very often a fear of failure or some other fear. So there is a compulsive drive to achieve or to do what they're doing, regardless of the consequences. And that can lead to an imbalance between work and life, or relationships, or health, and also can cause not just overwhelm and stress, and possibly a little too much drinking, a little, some poor sleep as well, but also burnout in extreme cases. So those are the people that are responding to the I'm not enough with let's just push harder. And it tends to be more male than female, because it's a testosterone related response. It's a masculine more than feminine, although women do that as well, because they're harnessing their masculine energy in the professional field. So it's not a clear dichotomy, but that tends to be more of a male response. The other one
Can I jump in with something real quick?
Yeah.
That? is people who overwork and workaholics and the ones that have to keep going and going and going, the ones that have something to prove, due to lack of self-worth, like I'm not enough, or even taking it a step further, there's something wrong with me. Like there must be something wrong with me. And a lot of these beliefs usually stem from childhood. But if you believe that you're not enough, or you believe there's something wrong with you, you're going to believe you have to work harder and have to do more than the average person to be on the same level, which isn't true.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then the other thing to extend that, Gina, is that of course, if you think it's true, again, subconsciously, so you might deny it logically. You might say, oh no, I know I'm good enough. I know all men are created equal and God endowed, blah, 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 blah. And that's worthless, because ultimately, if you don't believe it in your core, then you're going to respond based on that limiting belief. So you may think it's not true logically, but you just need to look at your life or your client's life and what it's showing you. And that often reveals very, very easily, if you know what to look for, what is the underlying thought. So the other, those are the people who are pumping the gas or hitting the gas. The others are pumping the brake. And these respond to the belief, I'm not enough, or I'm not, worthy, with self-doubt, perfectionism, procrastination, performance anxiety, which could be fear of public speaking or something like that, social anxiety, people pleasing, fear of rejection or judgment, imposter syndrome, and what is often called self-sabotage. I mean, it's a long list, but basically, so who's experienced any of those that I just mentioned on either side? Yeah. So basically, if someone believes they're not enough, or they're not good enough, or they're not worthy, then those things tend to come up, and it's pumping the brake, because basically it's slowing them down. It's stopping them from achieving their goals. And so those are extremely common. And when we've worked with clients of coaching clients, but just typically professionals in general, those tend to be the common complaints they have. Do you want to
There could also be issues with deserve level. If you don't feel worthy and you don't feel you're worthy of success or worthy of being on that stage or worthy of anything, you're going to hesitate, procrastinate, demotivate. And so as a result of your deserve level, because if like deep down on that irrational level, if you feel you're not worth it, you don't just, and therefore you don't deserve it, other people deserve that, why would you deserve that, so to speak, is the negative self-talk, right? So even though consciously, if you know you deserve it and you've had many achievements and awards and recognitions in your past to prove that to you, right, that you are worthy, you are good enough, you can do it, you are smart enough, you are capable enough, but still on this other level, there's, actions speak louder than words. So if you hesitate, procrastinate, or not motivated and avoiding doing something because you're afraid you might fail, because you're not smart enough and all these things, that's where you're pumping the brake. And one thing I just want to say really quick is some people do both. You hit the gas and you pump the brake. And if you do that, you're going to blow out your engine. That's going to lead to major burnout really fast.
Yeah. And that also can manifest as constant, like it would be like as if you're driving and you're flooring it, but then you're hitting the brake constantly. So you're doing this, and that's where coaches that we've talked to, one of the pain points that they see in their clients is obviously a blend of all these things, but a lot of it is they make really good progress for a short period, and then they hit a wall and they just can't get through it. And this also can show up as writer's block if someone's a writer. In my previous career, I was a nutritionist briefly in the late 90s. And one of the issues I was never made aware of until I got my master's degree. I wish they had told me this. I might have made a different decision. But they said, they never told me that most of your clients are not going to be able to follow your nutritional advice. They could do it for a couple of weeks, but then they're going to fall off the wagon because something is going to mess them up emotionally. No one ever told me that. I had to learn that And I was very discouraged because it's like, what the hell good am I if I give great advice and no one's following it? Anyway, so we'll touch on that shortly, but do you want to talk about the I'm not safe, Gina? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Another core belief is I'm not safe, and that can be in a physical space, like an airplane or an elevator or things like that, or a Ferris wheel, or emotional safety, right? But it always comes down to emotional safety, no matter where you are. So if you believe you're not safe, and like we said, these beliefs are usually formed in childhood at some point. It caused you to believe that you weren't safe, and maybe legitimately back then you weren't safe, but you are now. But the brain still thinks, the mind still thinks that's still going on. It's like a record scratch. It's like it stays on repeat and repeat and repeat. So if you just have this belief that this underlying sense of I'm just not safe in this world, I'm not safe around people, I'm not safe in my body, I don't trust others, I don't trust myself, you're bound to feel anxious. You're bound to feel anxious. You're bound to worry a lot, overthink, ruminate, catastrophize. All this is just trying to help you almost like try to see the future so that you can prepare for it and be okay, instead of just trusting and developing self-trust that you can handle pretty much whatever comes your way and that you have the ability to do so. Maybe it was true back then when you were younger that you did not, but it's not true anymore. And so, but that program that was true then still runs in the mind. And so that's the program that is leads to just a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, emotions, habits. People can try to control their environment, control outcomes, just so that they can feel in control. Because when people have a tendency to control things or people around them, it's just so that they feel okay, because their inner world feels out of control. So as long as everything around them is okay and in control, then they can breathe, right? This also can show up in business as micromanaging, instead of just trusting everyone knows how to do their job. And if one person slips a little, it's not the end of the world. So there's no need to micromanage people. This can also manifest as hyperindependence. If some of you don't know what hyperindependence is basically at some point you learned that no one's going to come and help you, that you can't trust someone, especially adults, if you were a child, to come and help you and get you out of the situation that you might legitimately be in danger and you might physically not be safe. And if no one came to help you, you can learn that you can only trust yourself because other people drop the ball. Of course, trust issues. So yeah, if there's a belief that you don't feel safe, hyperindependence, trust issues, anxiety, overwhelm, overthinking, ruminating, catastrophe. So these are all symptoms. And when you get to the root of what's going on, which is the belief I'm not safe, and clear some emotional trauma and maybe some memories that are there, because emotions are in the subconscious, memories are in the subconscious, the imagination, things that you imagine, catastrophizing, that's in the subconscious. Your behaviors, your habits, your belief systems are all in the subconscious, which is why what we do, or the road we take to do what we do to help clear all this for people so that they can just feel more liberated and free of this. And I've had clients say, I'm finally free of the shackles, that were holding me back. And so, yeah, if you don't feel safe, you can also, just reviewing, you can also have controlling tendencies, which can show up as micromanaging. So, I mean, feeling safe at a subconscious level is huge. It's huge. And if someone doesn't feel safe, it could even lead to poor sleep issues. And then that affects, of course, stress and anxiety and eating habits and maybe drinking more caffeine. And that makes you anxious. And so, I mean, I could keep going on that, but
Well, yeah, but no, that was good. I wanted to just say that while these beliefs can be learned anytime during someone's life, in our experience, usually that's learned during childhood. And it's often due to unhealthy family dynamics. So, for example, little t traumas, and again, who's to say, but that's in the trauma world, we tend to put things as big T traumas, like watching someone killed in front of you, or being in a car accident, or being sexually assaulted, or being mugged. Those would be, or someone, a veteran who saw someone, in war or whatever, that would be seen as a big T trauma. There's no clear definition, but most people would agree, okay, that's a big trauma. And then there's little traumas that make up the vast majority of traumas that most people have experienced. The vast majority of people have experienced adverse childhood experiences, whether it was having a parent who was verbally abusive, not to mention physically or sexually, but just verbally abusive, overly demanding, emotionally unstable. So maybe there was mental illness in the family, addiction issues, a parent that was narcissistic or emotionally unavailable, inconsistent with love or affection, not to mention community issues or poverty or violence in the community, parents getting divorced, any number of things all count as traumas. And a trauma, as we define it, it's not PTSD. That's a specific, diagnosis, and we don't diagnose our clients. But very few people have PTSD. Most people have experienced trauma. And trauma is basically is a response, not the event. It's a response to an emotionally upsetting experience that somehow the person has not, accepted, integrated into their life, into their mind. And it's not their fault. That's just, it happens. Most people do not spontaneously get over something that happens. Everyone has the ability to do it. The brain has the ability to clear that very quickly in minutes, as Gina was saying, in many cases. But a lot of people don't know this. And so they tend to limp along with the accumulated little traumas of their life, and even enter adulthood already with, one foot in the hole because of the things that just happened to them. I want to do a brief demonstration. Is anyone interested in, we can just keep talking, or is someone interested in some kind of a demonstration of how quickly your mind or brain can turn something off? Only one person? Oh, we got a couple. Okay. All right. So yeah, this would be kind of fun. My idea of fun, but anyway. So, okay. So if you would, just, you can close your eyes if you want, you don't have to, but take a moment and just think of something that you're worried about. Something that may be present in your life right now, or something that could happen in the future, something you might tend to ruminate about.
Nothing too traumatic.
Yeah, we're not talking about something that happened in the past that was extremely upsetting. We're just talking about if there are money issues, health issues, political concerns, whatever those things, or you have a big meeting coming up, and just get in touch with that just for 5, 10, 15 seconds, long enough to notice that there's some emotional discomfort, anxiety, stress, maybe even the heart rate accelerating a little bit. If your eyes are closed, that's fine. Just, if you would, just raise your hand when you're feeling that, when you're feeling some distress.
Usually you feel it somewhere in your body too.
Yeah.
That's how you know.
Okay. So we don't want to torture you. So you can stop thinking about that and open your eyes. And so now, so looking straight ahead, right? I'd like you just to look up maybe about, 30 degrees with your eyes. Keep your head still and just look up, maybe you're looking at where the wall and the ceiling meet, something like that. So you can do it with your eyes closed too, but with your eyes open, just notice that, just looking at that spot up there. And now with your eyes in that position, bring back the same thought that was worrying a few moments ago. Notice the difference.
just only move your eyes up, not your head or your chin.
Okay, good. So this works for most people and it should be noticeable right away. So would you all mind just writing something, writing in the chat what you noticed? If you noticed a difference, what was the difference the second time? Okay,
Wow.
I couldn't remember what was stressing me out. I didn't feel emotion.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's just one
Detach. Yeah.
So that's just one example. That's not much of really the part of the work we do, but that's just one demonstration of how neurologically, like based in neuroscience, where your eyes move affects how you feel and how you think. So for some reason, looking up pulls you out of your uh, the ruminating and the worry, and it gets you more into an open, maybe more of a visual, but a less emotional state.
I want to chime in real quick
Yeah.
with something here. I once had a consultation with someone. This was when we were seeing people in person in Miami, and she was having trouble focusing, and I could tell she seemed really distracted, and she started to well up a little bit. And I said, "Are you okay?" And it had nothing to do with what we were talking about in the moment. And she said, "I'm just really upset because I have to put my dog down later today." And then she just started crying, and I just was like, oh my God, like that's terrible. But I don't know, like I was thinking, if I don't do something right now, we're not going to be able to get through this consultation. And so I told her, just pause for a moment and look up. And I had her do that. I said, look up. And then I had her put a big grin on her face to like just even more like something the brain is wired when you're smiling, you don't feel bad, And so she felt kind of silly, but I just told her to do it. She looked up, big smile on her face. I said, okay. And we did that for like a minute because she was in tears. And then after that, I said, okay, do you feel better? A little bit of like a like a selling point there too, right? Like and she said she felt much better, that the tears just slowly turned into sniffles, and then we were able to get on with the consult, and it was great. And so it kind of got her out of that feeling crappy.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Gina, is that if when you smile, we're neurologically hardwired to be happy or to feel good. So even though it may look a little psychotic if you're feeling really upset and you have this big smile on your face, doing it for yourself is, that's not going to change anything long term, but at least in that moment, it will protect you from an onslaught of those feelings, and at least help you, if you do the smile or just look up, it's a good quick unplug. And we show that just to demonstrate that there are, if you want to call them hacks or little tricks, but it's not about tricks. It's just to realize that just trying to talk yourself out of a way of thinking when we've worried, we've ruminated, just trying to use logic and rational thinking is not very helpful. Because if you're in an irrational state, whether you think about it from a mind perspective or in terms of the amygdala in the brain, which is the fight or flight response area, pretty much in terms of emotions, when you're in that primitive part of your brain, your executive function up here, logical thinking, long-term planning, just doesn't work. So this is one way to kind of unplug from that, so you can get back into more rational thinking. We do have a few more things we want to mention before we open up for questions, but Karen, if you want to go ahead and ask your question or type.
Thank you. What is the logic between the not moving your head and just looking?
Because it's the movement of the eyes that do it. It's not the head. Now, you could do this, but in terms of actually getting the effect, it's your eyes' relative position to your head. Good question. Okay, so anyway, so the point is that since we're dealing with our irrational emotional part, which is the subconscious, and that controls most of everything we do, it thinks short term. It's focused on feeling good or not feeling bad, on self-preservation. It's not concerned with, oh, I want to, have X amount in sales this year, or I want to, lose 50 pounds so I can fit into that, whatever dress or bikini or suit. It's not thinking long-term. It's not capable of it. That's the conscious mind's job. So the conscious mind is rational and long-term thinking. And the reason why there's often conflict is simply that. They have different agendas. They're both part of our mind. They're both part of you. They're both trying to help, but they have a different time frame and they have a different way of doing things. So whereas the conscious mind is what coaches typically work on, unless they have special training or understanding about dealing with the subconscious, but generally speaking, strategic, long-term planning, step by step, these kind of things. And quite honestly, most health professions, most talk therapy is conscious level. Medical doctors, nutritionists, personal trainers, they're all at a conscious level. And when they give you good advice, it's on you to use willpower to stick to it, to follow through, to rely on your logical, rational thinking to stay focused. And that's a great idea. But the problem is, as soon as the shit hits the fan, or you imagine it's going to hit the fan, that goes all out the window. And so the way we think about it is that rather than relying on willpower or positive affirmations or just good advice, which we all know usually fail or require way too much effort, why not just address the issue at the subconscious where the problem is? And when you address it at this level, then the problem goes away. And it ultimately is about changing the underlying habitual thought pattern. Because talk therapy is a good solution for some people. The problem is it can take years or months if it's really effective and really quick. We often can deal with the same issues in the span of weeks and get even deeper, broader results simply because it's all about where you're focusing the intervention. If you understand where the problem is and you approach it on that level, things happen more quickly and easily. So I do want to mention one thing. It's an interesting analogy. I had a client who was an executive or became an executive, used to be in the military, and I don't remember, it doesn't matter which branch, but I was working with him. He also had been working with a coach. And he said, he came up with this interesting analogy that I've used since then. He says, what you do is kind of like the special forces, like Navy SEALs or Delta Force. I don't remember what he said. And he said, my coach is kind of like the Army setting up an installation for, a 6-month or a 2-year strategic plan. So my coach is like encamped and is building things out over that time. But you're like the special forces who drop out of the plane with a parachute, land, extract the real problem, get out, and then the Army's job is so much easier because you've extracted, the core obstacle or the core issue. And so that's kind of how we think about how we work when we collaborate or partner with coaches. The coaches do great work, especially with long-term strategy, big picture goals. We don't do that. But usually there's going to be some, the plumbing is already a little backed up in that client. Or when they're challenging themselves, a limiting belief from long ago pops up and says, nope, you can't do that. That's not going to work. You're not worthy. Bad things will happen if you accomplish that, whatever. And then they need that problem, basically unplugged or extracted. So the two work really well together because one is looking more long-term at a conscious level and the other is a more short-term tactical intervention at a subconscious level. So that's why what we wanted to communicate here is that even though our work can help, most people, really our goal is to collaborate with coaches who recognize that their clients, at least some of them, are stuck on something that is causing the coaching intervention to take a lot longer and to be more difficult than it needs to be. So do you, Gina, you want to say anything else about, before we open it up for questions?
So like we were saying earlier, you might know what the problem is, like, or where these belief systems started. Like, oh, I was abused growing up. Okay, great. We know what's causing it, but revelation doesn't always equal resolution, So the key is subconscious work. That's why conscious work only goes so far, because that's not where the problem is. Hypnosis, and us being board certified hypnotists, like 2% in the country have that title. Hypnosis is basically the road we take to get to the problem to solve it, right? That's the most effective road to take in our experience. And what we do works because we know how to align the emotional subconscious mind with the rational conscious mind. So the conscious mind says, let's just say it's the problem is procrastinating. The conscious mind says, I know if I get this done now or even ahead of time, I'll have tons of benefits in the future. That's great. But then the subconscious is procrastinating because there's self-doubt, there's low self-worth, things like that. So once all that is resolved and the self-worth is raised, then, and the belief system changes at a subconscious level that you are worthy, that you are good enough, and you can unlearn the beliefs that you've learned very quickly. Whatever you've learned, you can unlearn and relearn. And so once that's done, both parts of you that both care about you can finally come together and agree and be on the same page versus debating each other and fighting against each other. And that's where people feel they get in their own way, or they have blocks, or they feel like their own worst enemy, So that all gets resolved, and that's not even a problem anymore. So you can just move forward really quickly and easily. And that just makes it easier to achieve any goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically a mental handshake. And instead of having conflict, there's agreement and congruency. And then things tend to be much, whether it's, changing a habit, achieving a goal, stopping excessive worrying or whatever it might be, overcoming a phobia. Those are all things where when you get the two parts of you to work together, the problem usually goes away pretty quickly.
Right. And the mind then works for you rather than against you.
Yeah. Now Gina and I every month or so host what we call wake up calls. I've posted a couple invitations on Top and LinkedIn, I believe, where we talk for an hour. We answer questions that people have emailed ahead of time or put in the chat when they show up live. We did an episode about 2 months ago, and I'm going to put it in the chat. If you're interested in some of this and you want to hear more discussion about specifically how this works in concert with coaching, then you can visit this video that we have, because a lot of the questions came from top members. A lot of the questions came from coaches. We don't mention the names of who asked them, but a lot of the majority of the questions are about coaching and examples of clients, executives we worked with who've had issues, kind of in line with what we mentioned. So the video link is there. Feel free and copy that. And before we open it to Q&A, I just want to say, we're not selling our services here today. We're not looking for any of you to become a client. If you are interested, you can visit our website at goodwinhypnosis.com. We're not going to say no unless we don't think we can help you. But that's not the purpose of our conversation. We are looking strategically to collaborate with 2 or 3 coaches, experienced coaches, who can, who have the ability and the awareness and the desire to notice when their clients are getting in their own way, when there is subconscious resistance, like any of the examples that we mentioned earlier. 2, coaches who can recognize the value of having like priority access to a tactical problem solver like Gina or me to help troubleshoot client issues and potentially drop in and extract the problem, with those clients, or teach in a larger group if there's a mentorship or a membership, a group coaching process. And 3, are willing to consider having a, strategic alliance that will benefit everyone, because we're only interested in win-win-win relationships where you win, where we win, where your clients win. There's enough room for that we don't need to pick win-lose. We're all about everyone benefits. So if that's something that you feel describes you, I'm going to put in my my little Calendly link, and you can schedule a one-on-one with me, and Gina will join if she's available, so we can get to know each other and discuss this further, answer any specific questions you have. So those are 2 links you can make a note of. If you don't need to do them now, but just keep track of those. And let's open it up to Q&A. We can either do this in the chat or, unmute yourself, unless that would be chaotic. Questions, comments?
I like the chaos, so I say ask the questions directly.
Okay.
Way better. Way more fun.
Okay, cool.
I have a question. This is Rich. I'm just curious. I'm in therapy and I do EMDR. And it's funny you talked about being scared of planes, because I'm freaked out about planes, and I'm taking a 16-hour flight in 35 days direct. So, how is yours different from EMDR? I know you're not a therapist, but could you explain?
Yeah. That's a great question. Actually,
can I give a client example first, and then you can explain what the difference is, like really briefly?
Sure.
So Rich, right? Yeah. I had a client once who came to me. She was an executive coach, actually. And she came to me because she found us on YouTube somehow. And she just thought all of our videos spoke right to her. And she's like, I know these people can help me. And she said she tried therapy. She tried EMDR. She had been diagnosed with PTSD. And she said she did a whole full round of EMDR. And she said it helped a little, but she still was having flashbacks. And she said within a key moments during some of our sessions, I was able to effectively clear them, which is what therapy and EMDR couldn't do for months and years. And so that's one difference. And Todd will explain how or why.
You're on mute, Todd.
Oh man, I just said the best thing and I don't remember what it was. So Rich, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is basically there's no way to say it without using multisyllabic words, because that's how people in this field sound smart. So, but basically it works by what's called memory reconsolidation, which is a natural brain process where we naturally, every time we access a memory, it becomes malleable and changeable. And then depending on how we change it, unintentionally or intentionally, it then goes back into long-term memory storage, slightly or significantly changed. Now, this happens automatically anyway, even without seeing a therapist or a hypnotist. It just happens. And this is one reason why memories are not reliable as exactly true to what happened, because when you remember something, you're remembering the last version. So it's like you save a file in Microsoft Word, and every day you add or change that, or every week or month, eventually, the file still has the same name on it, but it's not the same. It's not the same file. And that's how memories work. So EMDR, from a psychotherapeutic point of view, is an excellent tool. We do we have a few different techniques that are basically, generally speaking, gentler alternatives to EMDR that work just as well, are faster, but they have some of the same origins, which actually are NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, which is what we use with hypnosis. So the originator of EMDR, Francine Shapiro, learned these eye movement techniques from one of the originators of NLP, and that was the origin story, the true origin story of EMDR. So it's great. And so we do things similar to that. And memory reconsolidation is a process that we use various techniques to clear trauma in minutes often, regardless of how long ago it was, how significant it was. So, presumably if you're doing that for the flying, that should work. If it's done right, it work quite well with that.
Yeah, I've seen some major changes so far. Thanks for answering.
Yeah, you're welcome. So does your technique help people with eating disorders? Generally speaking, yes, because an eating disorder is on its surface a behavior or a behavioral tendency, which is an effect of an emotional condition or situation. And it's also linked to thoughts. So thought could be, It could just be related to stress, but if we're talking about like anorexia nervosa, bulimia, or some combination, or overeating, if it's related to body image, a feeling of I don't feel like I have much control, but I can control whether I keep the food down or I control whether I eat or not, those can be the underlying thought patterns. And usually there's trauma or family dynamics that are related to the origin of those conditions, not always. So there's usually trauma work, which I will add is rarely uncomfortable for more than a minute or two in the work we do. Most of our clients enjoy their time with us, and there's often laughter and fun that we weave into the trauma work. So it's not a painful process. It's usually very quick, empowering, and then they're done with it, and it usually sticks in that changed state. So yes, the short answer is it can often help with eating disorders because we're not focusing on self-control behaviorally. Eat, don't binge, don't purge, whatever. It's changing the underlying thoughts and emotions that lead to that behavior as a presumptive solution to how they're feeling. Was that helpful? Did that answer that question?
Amazing. Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
Sometimes also if someone comes from a very controlling environment, especially, former child stars or people who are child stars, you'll hear that they had eating disorders because at least that's one thing they had control of and that no one can control. They can control their life, their schedule, where they are, what they look like, what they're wearing, their persona, but at least the only thing you have control of is how much you're eating or not eating. And then you feel a sense of control because everything else around you seems so out of control. And that doesn't have to be just former child stars. Can be anybody who felt like they came from a very controlling environment.
Yeah, and let me just add this, going back more than 25 years, when I was a newly minted nutritionist, we did learn about eating disorders. And we were told that in many cases, we could help people with it. Now, I'm not going to cough bullshit, but, I just did. But the reality is just telling people what they kind of already know and then asking them to control themselves when they're emotional and they clearly don't have control is in a way kind of cruel because the person ends up feeling like there's something wrong with them. And this is a feature, not a bug of the mind. There's nothing wrong with any of you, any of us, anyone who experiences this. This is how the mind works, and for very good reason. So instead of bludgeoning the subconscious to do our bidding, we need to say, okay, what are you trying to do to help me? How are you trying to help me? Even if you're an overprotective parent, misguided friend, giving me seemingly bad advice, it's coming from a good place. You're doing your job. How can I understand this? And let's find healthier alternatives, or at least remove the thorn that is causing these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all in the mind. So I like what you're saying. One more question would be, how long does it typically take for someone to recover, to remove the thoughts?
Well, it depends what the issue is. I mean, we always do an initial consultation. Obviously, we see every client by Zoom. So we switched to that during COVID, which is convenient, and we found ways to compensate for the inherent disadvantages of not seeing someone in person. So now it's actually more effective than our in-office sessions ever were, thankfully. So we do a consultation, usually takes about an hour, and we're able to size up pretty accurately what's really going on, what's really the underlying cause. And then we say, okay, we can name that tune in 7 notes or whatever it is. And so we pick a number, a program size that we can very realistically say by the end of this time, which is usually a number of weeks, so it's a fairly short period, we're going to resolve this and you will be able to, move on with your life. They're not going to be perfect because who will be, but most people come to us because they're in some form of pain and we're able to help them get out of that, get back to being fully functional and move on. And, so we don't have long-term engagements with clients unless they're such a high-performing person that they want to perfect something. But, most of the time it's a short intervention.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the questions. Any other questions? We'll hang as long as there are questions.
By the way, when we say that we like to have fun or incorporate fun, clearing trauma, that doesn't mean that Todd's going to dance around in his underwear.
No. But it doesn't mean I won't. Any other questions? No, I don't have my drum set. Where is it? Anyway, yes, I thought that was pretty funny.
Todd, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So this just came up probably 2 days ago. So one of my wife's best friends got surprised by her boss, who was not going to be at a conference, and he said, "I want you to present at this conference." And she literally is like in the biggest panic you could possibly imagine. She said, "I literally will quit this job." And she's had this job for a long time, and fairly well paid job. And she's not kidding. Like, she's ready to quit the job rather than do this. And so she asked my wife Meg, like, what would Scott? I think she wanted affirmation that I'd say, like, "Oh yeah," like I would say, don't worry about doing the talk, which would not be my recommendation. But what do you do for people? Because I said, what she's experiencing is so common,
Yeah.
so common.
Is it like fear of public speaking? Is that why she's freaking out?
Fear of public speaking.
And
I
that's
mean,
why
all
she wants
the
to. That's why she wants to quit her job. That's the escape or avoid when you feel something. So that's her
she
saying,
literally
I'm out.
would. Yeah, I mean, that's how severe it is, that she was not joking. She would rather quit than be
Feel the
forced to do this.
Yeah. So you have a specific question, or are you asking how?
I don't know. What would your advice be? Just I mean, obviously your advice would be come see you and consult.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, my advice would be, visit our website, because we have a page on fears and also public speaking, and our YouTube channel has like 130 different educational videos on different topics. Not everyone is into doing that kind of research, but those are good at a conscious level, explaining all of these things. She can schedule a consultation with us, but what I can tell you is that that's a very common fear. It's probably the most common, like, situation specific anxiety or fear issue. It's something I used to have before I became a hypnotist. It was really, really bad, to the point where I would black out sometimes and not even know what the hell was going on until later. And I'd have to.
And now you can't stop. And now you don't stop talking.
No, isn't that amazing? It works great. So anyway, yes. So ultimately what it comes down to usually is that she's putting way too much pressure on herself, even if she doesn't have a past experience that was kind of an initially, traumatic experience. I did have a couple of those when I was a child, and I was embarrassed by a teacher in front of my class at, 8 years old. I'm pretty sure that's where it came from. But it's basically putting too much pressure on herself, fear of being judged, rejected, or criticized, fear of unwanted consequences of not meeting, again, her expectations that are really high. And, it pretty much is that. So the way we would probably approach that would be to dismantle or reframe those beliefs at a subconscious level. And through everything from hypnotic storytelling to memory reconsolidation to directed visualization exercises, basically change how she thinks about it at a subconscious automatic level, so that when she faces the idea of going on stage and doing that, she's not paralyzed. She might feel a little bit of nervousness, and usually a little bit is good enough to kind of wake up your system, but anything more than that is totally unnecessary.
I just put the brief
good.
YouTube video in the chat. I hope I typed it out right. It's like 8 minutes or something, so it's not a lot. I'll tell you quickly, I had would you say he was a insurance? No, not a broker.
Real estate broker.
Right. So he's got a lot of people working under him. And he saw me when we were in Miami, and he had a fear of public speaking, and you would never guess this is a CEO. And he couldn't talk in meetings. He would get dry mouth. He would like hyperventilate. He would have to excuse himself. He would have his assistant or people who work for him under him speak for him instead. And it was really challenging for him. And so after working together for like a month, maybe. Like I saw him every week, like 4 or 5 times, and he was fine. He could do it. He couldn't believe it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and by the way, and so actually, Scott and Gina's example, I just pasted again the link to our wake up calls video from 2 months ago. There was a specific question, probably from a top member, about what causes a fear of public speaking or something to that effect. So she explains it pretty clearly in there, and or I do. And then also, I think she gave that example of a client, the real estate broker. So there's a lot of discussion about some of these questions, at least as they relate to professionals. These are normal things, and the what is both frustrating and inspiring to us is frustrating that so many people don't realize, they don't understand why their mind is creating these problems. I'm talking about even grief, trauma; those are self-created. It's not intentional. It's no one's fault, but it's a function of how we respond to life experience. Most people don't realize why we're doing what we're doing. More importantly, how we're doing what we're doing, and that those things can be changed. It doesn't matter how old you are, how long it's been, how many times it's happened. Your brain is always learning, always growing based on how it's being used. That's neuroplasticity. So rather than using it in the same shitty way and getting the same shitty outcome, there are ways of resetting that, rewiring it basically at the root, so that you don't have to psych yourself up. You don't have to remind yourself that, you're good enough, smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. If anyone remembers that reference, right? It just happens because the operating system basically has changed. So what inspires us is knowing that hopefully we're making a little bit of an impact somewhere, where if people understand that they're not prisoners and that they can free themselves from whatever these things are that plague them. And like I said, we all have experienced things. Then we're inspired to say, you know what, let us be the person to help you walk out of that prison cell and keep walking, keep moving, because it's possible, and it's amazing to see people before and then after. It's super rewarding. So
I heard something recently about, you said it's how you respond to life or life situations, and we have the ability to respond differently. And so if you look at response ability, it's our responsibility to, I guess, take care of ourselves or change, or how responsible you are. And so does that make sense? So you're saying it's how we respond to life, and our response ability, our ability to respond, or our ability to change, right?
Yep.
Is, people would say that, oh, they're very responsible, they're very, they're responsible for themselves. It's your ability to respond. And some people just don't have a very good ability to respond, such as narcissists. So I just thought that was interesting. I literally heard that like a day or two ago, like your response and your responsibility, your ability to respond.
I'm just curious, what allows some people to process trauma so quickly?
You're saying spontaneously without any professional help?
No, well, I don't know. I think I'm somebody who I heal very quickly. I process horrendous, I've had the craziest things happen in my life, like insane.
I think it might
why.
be what you tell yourself when it comes to those situations. It's the meaning you extract from it. Does it mean that it makes you a shitty person, whatever you saw or experienced, or does it mean that, oh, well, that had nothing to do with me? So the way you respond is key. It's not what happens in our life, it's our reaction to them. So we're presented with information in life, and then our mind, which is our representational system, represents it in our mind based on certain filters, trying to assign meaning to something. So if you don't really attach yourself or any negative meaning to it, then things don't affect you as much, because it's not what happens, it's your reaction to it. It's what you say to yourself.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Gina. So Scott, it could be,
you also could be stuffing it down. No,
Yeah, well, that's
ticking time bomb.
that's
I
possible.
think what you said is very true. Like a lot of it, I don't mind. A lot of people know, like, both of my boys have had heroin addictions. One of them was homeless. They've both been hospitalized numerous times, like, been through everything imaginable. But I don't think it has anything to do with whether I was a good parent, bad parent. Like, I don't. And
Yeah.
so I think I've been able to function, move through that, which, you know, I've seen paralyze other people.
Yes.
But why? Like, I guess that's maybe the reason.
Yeah. So part of it can also be whatever your pre-existing belief system might have been. And I'll say this in two ways. In other words, if you have a way that you're unconsciously framing reality or how the universe works, or I don't mean woo-woo, I'm saying, how things unfold, what they mean, even if you were never literally told this is true, it's somehow how you tend to filter things. If you filter it in a way that is not disempowering or is not um, uh, upsetting or counterproductive, then you're going to be much more resilient than someone who does that, who does who frames it differently. A good example of this, just to make it more clear, there's a lot of research that shows that people who develop PTSD from a traumatic experience childhood trauma, often major trauma. So let's just pick an example, two people in a military situation witness the same objectively horrendous experience. One person ends up with PTSD, addiction, suicidal tendencies, and the other one's like, shit, that was really a shitty day. And then they just sort of move on. It doesn't mean they're heartless. There's usually something different going on at the time when this is happening and from that point forward. But what's interesting is, according to the research, chances are the person who gets PTSD experienced childhood trauma, whereas the one who did not. And so the trauma early on sensitizes someone to being traumatized again. And so it's almost like they're primed to be disabled by trauma. And so in the same way, they go into their military experience, using this example, already having a program where the trap is set, essentially. They already have the subconscious belief that, people are mean, bad things happen, they are, helpless or something. Then when something confirms that, it's like to abuse the analogy, like a landmine that they step on that had been set 20 years earlier. But that's similar to kind of what Gina was saying, is there's something you might be telling yourself, or the meaning that you might have be giving to this that you're not even aware of. But in your case, it happens to be an empowering one that makes you resilient. But that's just a guess.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you, guys. I mean, to me, this subject is like fascinating, really fascinating. So I hope you come back and do more, because I think there's so much to talk about. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
We'd love to.
Thanks everyone for joining and
Thanks for
spending all
coming
the extra time.
And the questions.